everybody, and welcome to this course about creating lightsaber battles using the open source software Opentoonz. If you're interested in following the entire course, you can find it on Skillshare or on Udemy. There's a link in the description. In this video, we are gonna animate this lightsaber. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, first of all, we want to freeze this frame. We can do that by clicking on the frame and then dragging down on this tab here. That will push all the subsequent frames down. So let's freeze it for about a quarter of a second. When we're done, we need to quickly readjust the last few frames. And then scroll back up. Next, let's select the first frame where the lightsaber will be fully switched on. And let's click here to set a keyframe. This will freeze all the parameters of the frame in the current position and scale and rotation. Next, let's go back to the first frame containing the lightsaber and we set the horizontal scale to 0. So as you can see, the scale gradually increases from 0 to 100%. Notice how the lightsaber shortens and lengthens and doesn't get thinner or wider. This is because when we use the Animate Tool to rotate the lightsaber, we're actually rotating the entire level or the entire drawing area. Remember how the white border shows the drawing area of the level we currently have selected. As you can see, it's not only the lightsaber that has been rotated by the animation tool, but in fact the entire drawing area of the level. And the width of the level also decreases and increases as we change the horizontal scale. If we preview that, it looks like this. Okay, we've done all this with the Animate Tool. In this chapter, I'm not going to talk too much about the Animate Tool because I think it's pretty straightforward. Essentially, all you have to do is use the Animate Tool to set properties like position, rotation, and scale at certain points in time. And then Opentoonz will interpolate between those points. Or in other words, Opentoonz will find all the positions in between the 2 points. If you do feel a little confused and you would prefer to have a bit more in-depth explanation and some practice, then I refer you to the earlier chapters where we learn the basics. Okay, now we've got the switching on of the lightsaber done. We're gonna set the consecutive keyframes too. Scrubbing through the timeline, we see that the lightsaber essentially stays stationary until approximately frame 347. So let's set another keyframe there. And after that, we need to occasionally adjust the rotation and the position of the lightsaber. We don't need to do it in every single frame because the tween will calculate the frames in between. Right now, no need to worry about being perfect. Just get a more or less the general motions. In this part of the motion, the lightsaber will face the camera for a while. In this case, we have to take into account foreshortening. Foreshortening simply means that when an object like a cylinder, for example, faces the viewer, it appears to be shorter. So in other words, when the lightsaber is pointed directly at the camera, we need to decrease the horizontal scale of the lightsaber. This way, for those frames, it will look as though the lightsaber is pointed at the camera. In this particular case, I will go to the last frame of the motion and set the scale to -100%. This causes a slightly confusing situation because we haven't set a keyframe for the scale since the lightsaber was first switched on. So we need to go back to the first keyframe of the motion and set the scale back to 100%. Now, between these two keyframes, we see that the length of the lightsaber decreases as it points more towards the camera. Sometimes working with keyframes like this can be quite confusing, so it's quite useful to get an overview of which keyframes we have and haven't set. We can get such an overview by right-clicking on the keyframe and selecting Function Editor. We get an overview of the parameters with the dark orange parameters as keyframes and the light orange parameters as values which were calculated as interpolations between keyframes. We can use this column on the right to select which parameters we would like to see. And we just continue like that until we have the lightsaber tweened for the entire video. By the way, I've sped up the video a little bit because I'm sure you have got a lot better things to do than watch me tweening this lightsaber. Sometimes it's quite tricky to figure out exactly where the lightsaber is pointing to, so that's why I use this stick I have in my hand as a guide to help me figure it out. We can decrease the opacity of the lightsaber up here to have a better view of the stick so we can more easily see where it's pointing to. Even though in most parts of the video I don't need to set the lightsaber frame by frame, in some parts where the motion is really fast, like for example when I throw the lightsaber up into the air, in that case the tweening can't really handle it, and it's much better to do it frame by frame. And that's basically all there is to say about animating the lightsaber. I'm gonna speed up the video a little bit more, and in the last part of the video we'll be talking about modifying the last frames of the scene. And we'll also have a look at the results so far. Okay, so now we're done animating the lightsaber for now. Let's modify the last frames. First of all, let's remove these extra lightsaber frames. Select the first frame you want to remove, hold down Shift, and then select the last frame you want to remove, and then press Delete. We see that this white triangle marks the end of the scene. We can move this right triangle to make the scene end sooner. Now let's evaluate the results so far. I'm more or less satisfied, but I'm thinking that the motion of the lightsaber doesn't always quite work and it's gonna need a little fine-tuning. And we are gonna do that in the next video. So see you there. Bye bye.